Yeah, so I'm the founder, owner, CEO of Signal Media. We're a marketing agency here in DeLand that I started almost 9 years, about 9 years ago. And we exist to help mid-level companies, particularly focused on B2B. We help their CEOs and their marketing and sales teams achieve faster growth. And we do that various different ways. By running marketing campaigns, by training salespeople, really anything that adds to the top or bottom line, we're looking at and helping them in whatever format is needed. Yeah, along the way, I got reconnected with Stetson when I moved back to DeLand. Stetson had been a client, I think now for 3 years, working with university marketing. And we've done a handful of video projects. We've worked with about 4 or 5 other departments throughout the school, working on graphic design, some marketing strategy, kind of a whole host of things. And we've really kind of formed this indirect partnership that now has become more of a formal thing, which is really kind of launching today, which is pretty exciting. And it kind of came about because along the way, I realized, hey, I have a few things that I would like to have done inside our agency that we're not having the time to get to because we're off working with clients on their work. So why don't I call on Stetson to see if I can get some talented students in here to help me with some of this work. So I started that process maybe 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we did sort of a traditional internship. We'd bring 2 or 3 students in, and we would work on content creation, we work on strategy, we worked on all kinds of things. And some of it went really well, and some of it didn't go so well, just depended on the student and the project we were working on. But what I found through that process was that this might sound a little harsh, but that the internship, traditionally, that program is kind of broken in my mind, because the employer, me, is looking to get a certain thing from a certain value from that student, and the student is looking to get a certain value out as well. And when it came down to it, we would spend 2, 3, sometimes 4 months together, semester long, or give or take time, and one of us would probably have some benefit, but it wasn't to the benefit that it really should have been. So I started looking deeper into that, and I realized that a lot of this can be distilled and simplified to something much more simple. And so that's where I created just recently the Micro-Internship program inside of our company. And so far, we've had 2 students that are just finishing up the first 30-day period, and it's gone really well. And we'll get into kind of what it is and who it's for and that kind of thing. But I'm really excited to be here to talk to you guys today about micro-internship specifically, but then kind of broadly this idea of interning with companies and understanding, what value or benefit you can get from it, and then what value the company or employer would get from it as well. So Liz or Olivia, I'm not sure if you had questions for me, but I can jump right into what a micro-internship is if you'd like me to, assuming everybody can still hear me.
Yeah, definitely. Some of our listeners or viewers tonight may be familiar with the term, but they may also not be. So yeah, if you could explain that part, that'd be great. Maybe how it differs from a traditional internship, like you said, that maybe isn't always the most beneficial, and maybe what it enables them to take away. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, through my career, I have a lot of things that I come up with that I feel like are original ideas, and I realize they never are original, that someone's already done them. This is another example of that. I'm looking at what we're doing with interns traditionally and seeing that it's sort of broken and saying, okay, how can we fix it? And I'm looking into it and saying, hey, why don't we just distill it down to its simplest form? They get what they want, I get what I want, and we can create something that is much more simple. then I realized that Stetson already has a program like that called Micro-Internships, formerly with another company that it's a platform that they use. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a paid program where companies can, basically it's a clearinghouse of sorts where Stetson and other schools come into, and companies can come into that platform and find interns to work together. And I'm not exactly how their program works, so I don't want to speak for them, but the way our program is set up is it is really about the end goal. The end goal for the intern is to be able to put something on their resume, number one, to say, look, I have more experience, I have grown in a greater skill, or I understand now how to better fit in an organization that I want to get into. So assuming most of you are here, I know we had a couple people that are first year, you overachievers, but besides you're looking towards the end of school, or maybe you just graduated, and you're looking to better yourselves to level up, as they say, to get into that next move for your front end of your career, or as you're starting your career. So the bottom line is, you want something that is just this kind of way our culture has gone, and we want everything distilled as quickly, to consume it as quickly as possible. And this internship program shouldn't be any different. So basically, what it is a 30-day internship, and it's very much more intensive, I think, than a longer internship would be. It's centered around one project, typically. Sometimes if they're small projects, we'll do 2 or 3. And again, I'm talking about the Signal Media Micro-Internship program, not the other platform. And then in addition to that, there's one-on-one mentorship. Typically with myself, I'm running this with our organization currently to get it off the ground, but we also have some of our other, like our business manager in particular. She's involved in the interview process, and we'll be taking over parts of this as we grow it. So there's a one-on-one time that you, I think, sometimes don't get with your traditional internship, which I think is an invaluable resource as you want to grow as a person, and you want to grow your skills and experience, but you also want to have some of your questions answered about the navigation of the journey. Am I making the right decisions? Am I doing the right things? Is this going to lead me where I want it to lead me? So having an ear from someone who is now 41, have my own business, I've worked for multiple small and large companies, and especially in the space of selling and marketing, to ask about what your next steps, how you're taking your next steps, I think is it's been proven to be valuable, because that's the feedback that we're hearing. So how it's different is it's truncated. It's very, very short. It's very focused, and it's very much specific to a skill or an experience that the student wants to build. So when we have our interview process, we typically have 3 to 5 positions at any given time, or disciplines open. We could have multiple positions for a discipline. So one may be graphic design, one may be video editing, content creation in terms of written, writing. Actually, we have someone right now writing a book with us, but articles and blogs, and let's see, what's the other one? Web design and web development. So those are the kind of the 4 main ones that we have a need for, and we always have projects. I mean, we have a list of stuff that we want to do and get to, but we find it hard internally to get to some of these things. So it's 30 days. We pick one of those, and we say, okay, you are interested in growing your skills in video editing, let's say, for example. We have a project, like right now, we're working with one of the Stetson students. I believe she's a junior, and she wanted to get better at video editing. So we had a project kind of sitting on the shelf that we pulled off and said, okay, here's the creative brief. Here's what we want you to do. We gave it to her, and she ran with it. And then she would meet with me. I think we were meeting twice a week. and I give her feedback and talk about, you know, is she hitting the mark or what she should be thinking about in terms of technical, you know, the program that she's using, and how she's approaching the editing, but also bigger picture, like, and I'll get into that in a minute, but like personal roadblocks that come into doing her work. So, you know, it's very specific. So in the interview process, we're talking to her, and we asked, like, what is it that you really want to get better at? What is it that the experience that you really want to add to your resume, but add to your, you know, to your kind of portfolio of life? And that's what we want to help you with. We want the student to really benefit the most, because we know that we can get this work done using someone else, but if we can use an intern to do the work, then it helps us, definitely, but I think it helps the intern even more, because they're able to refine their skills without kind of a penalty on the back end of messing something up. The one major difference as well is, I think a lot of times, especially in the sales and marketing world, if you're an intern and you go work for an agency or you work for a company, you kind of get shelved to doing a lot of more of the administrative type tasks. And that doesn't really help your ability to become a better marketer or salesperson. So what we want to do is give you a specific task that will help you become a better whatever it is that you're trying to move into. So if you want to get into written content, or let's say journalism or anything in that realm, then we want to give you a written project, and we want you to produce it, and we want to walk you through it. But the great thing is it's 4 weeks long. In each week we meet twice a week. There's an initial meeting on Monday, and then on Thursday there's like a roadblock meeting to see, are we having any roadblocks, how do we overcome it? And then there's a deadline. So in 4 weeks the project's done. You have the ability to put that on your resume. You have the ability to put it on your LinkedIn. There's a section for LinkedIn that you can add projects that you've worked on. You will, in most cases, get a link for the project, so you can link out to it so an employer can see exactly what you did, which I think is very helpful from a practical standpoint for an employer to see, oh, they did that, okay, they have this level of ability, and we'll, you know, that can move you along quicker than someone else. And if needed, recommendations at whatever level from myself or my team. So that's kind of a little bit about what the internship program looks like, what it is, how it's different. What was the what do you want me to touch on next?
Great. So I'm just pulling my mic and my cam back up. That's great. I think that's great to talk about the differences, because micro internships, like Lee said, is something new that's kind of emerging in the field of not only marketing, like he's mentioning, but all over. And so I think that's a really cool way to like set yourself apart, is to complete short-term project work that's really valuable. So Lee, I bet you could talk more about maybe how students might find an opportunity like this, if you want to jump in there, or the different ways that they might interact. Like one thing that we really have been talking about lately in the webinar series is, and I bet you can echo this, is how important it is to find those opportunities and connect with alumni. So if you could tell us maybe more about kind of how you even got started in those different opportunities, and then maybe where they can find more information about your micro internships. I shared some information in the chat.
Okay, yeah. So, what's great, I think, today we all really, like we're doing here, a lot of it's going to be virtual. I operate my entire company virtual. So I have a home office, and at my home. And all my team members are virtual, and we have been for 8-9 years. So I think it's really advantageous for students today to really start gearing themselves in that way, to think how gaining the skill of working virtually, essentially. And that's what this internship allows you to do, because all our meetings are virtual. So just gaining that skill alone, I think, is beneficial. But I wanted to talk about before we get to like kind of a call to action, I think it's very important to talk about mistakes that students typically make when they're in an internship. Hopefully that's okay. I don't want to like derail it, but I think that a major mistake that we've seen from the traditional side, and now we've seen it corrected on the to some extent on the micro-internship side, is just miscommunication. Students are learning work life, and so that's why I kind of bring up the virtual, the virtual working discipline. It's really good to understand your rhythm and your mindset, but your structure of how you're setting your day up and how you're working, and starting to do that right now with your school is very helpful, because there's a good chance that a lot of employers are going to stay virtual, and you will have to work virtual to some degree, maybe not entirely, as time goes on. And I think this personally is a benefit more than it is a hindrance. I think there's a place for in-person as well, and there will always be. But what it really comes down to is communication. If you are not communicating and not thinking ahead, you're going to lose out on valuable pieces of information that can be lost in translation. So, it's hard to give an example because I don't want to really call anybody out, but we've had some interns through that were not they were not as good to communicate in any form. They're just still working on this life skill, I guess, in their life. And so I would respond and say, hey, I haven't heard from you in a week or so, and we have this sort of structure that we work by. So I understand that, communication might be something you're working on, but feel free to reach out so we can, kind of pick up where we left off and move forward. So we try to be cognizant of where you guys are right now in your life, your work-life balance, of understanding what is it that how do I approach this, and how do I add value as an intern. And I'd say just number one, communication is key. Making sure that you are over communicating if you feel like you might have a tendency to procrastinate, or you might have a tendency to not plan or be disorganized. That's a big thing. Learning, I made a note here, learning how to work professionally is a big thing too. It's difficult being in a virtual environment because as you can see right now in my house, which I'm not in my office right now, but there are certain markers to professionalism that we need to maintain, and this goes for every profession. But just because we're virtual or just because we're tuning in from our homes doesn't mean that we shouldn't bring a certain level of professionalism to our work and to our image or our reputation. So just wanted to mention that as well, something to consider, that if you're bringing a higher level of professionalism to your internship at wherever you may intern, that company may have a decent standard or may have a lower standard, but always having a higher standard, bringing that as your first step is not a bad thing. You can always put a hat on, or put a t-shirt on, or put your robe on, or turn your camera off, for that matter. But and also in summary of mistakes to not make or things to think about as you're moving from student to professional, and using internships kind of as that bridge, is to just think about how you manage your time and your workload. Really, being a student is practice for being a professional. So how you manage your classes and your personal life as it goes with your classes is going to be largely indicative of how you manage your personal life and your professional life. You may put on a slightly more professional face when you are on a call or in person, because that's kind of what you have to do. But practicing those things now will definitely help that to be part of your DNA whenever you you make the switch. Trying to think if there was something else I needed to cover. You know, one thing I would say too is when you're looking for internships, try to be as specific as possible. So, you know, just taking an internship for the sake of an internship, you might as well not do it. You want to get some good or great value out of it. You know, something obviously to add to your resume and show people that you are acquiring skills. But the experience and the personal growth side of it is probably the most important side of it. And that's why we have this kind of layered in this one-on-one mentoring component to our internship. Because I realized that it's not just graphic design skills or web development skills or video editing or whatever it may be that the student's working on. It's that they need to understand how work and life go together. And, you know, that kind of brings me to the structure of our internship program. So I mentioned before, we have 2 meetings a week. So there's 4 weeks. And we have a kickoff meeting the week before the first week after your interview and everything. So everybody's on the same page. When we start the first week, Monday, we meet and start the work. And then Thursday is when we'll have what we call a roadblock meeting. And then that cycle continues until we finish the project. And so I want to bring that up because the reason why we have a roadblock meeting, and so the first meeting Monday is usually an hour long, depending on the project we're working on. And then the roadblock meeting is 15 to 30 minutes. It's just a check-in. But the reason why we have that is largely for personal problems, not work or project-related problems. Again, like we saw, you know, being a student is difficult because you're spinning a lot of plates. And so you're trying to understand what that balance should look like. And sometimes you drop some plates. We're aware of that. I used to be a student and I was not the best one. So, you know, we're empathetic to that. And that's why we built this in, because invariably there will be an email or a text or something happen through the week that says, oh, well, my grandmother got sick, or, well, my car broke down, or I had to travel out of state or out of town, or something happened personally and it impeded my ability to do my project. Well, we knew that was going to happen because stuff happens in our personal life, but it gives us the ability to talk about how to maneuver around that roadblock. And that as a life skill is very important. It may sound kind of mundane and boring, or not that big of a deal, especially here on a webinar like this. But when you actually get into the weeds of doing your work as a professional outside of internship and in your job, I think the biggest thing that young people and old people struggle with is being able to balance the tyranny of the urgent on the personal side. So something happens and it wrecks you emotionally for the day, and so you can't do your work, or it wrecks you from a time management standpoint, and so you can't figure out how to do your work. It's not necessarily how it should always be. So we want to talk through it. We're not counselors, but you present us with the roadblock, the problem. We say, okay, let's talk about how you can maneuver around it, give some suggestions, help you to come up with your own suggestions, but press a little bit to get you to work through that on your own and overcome that hurdle personally. Because honestly, I think there's really 2 ideas. Like, personal growth really is the thing that we're all striving for. Even as an entrepreneur, I want to build a business and make money, but that's secondary to growing personally. And I didn't realize that until a lot of years had gone by, that that's really what I'm doing here. And all the other stuff kind of comes as a byproduct. Well, if we can understand how to manage ourselves personally and the roadblocks that come in between, then there's a greater chance that we're going to grow personally in our work and outside of our work. So we want to address those issues as we go through the project. And as you can tell, meeting twice a week is a lot. It's less than having to be on site at an employer's traditional internship filing papers 3 days a week, but it's more intensive when you talk about the actual work that you're doing to deliver a project, which gets more intensive when you're the one that has to deliver the project versus you're there to sort of help, but no one asks for your help. So I hope that's helpful for everyone. I wanted to kind of share the structure so that you could see that it's very refined. It's very structured so that when you start, there's an end point. And I think that's really the major benefit and why we call it the micro-internship, because you can see the daylight at the end of the tunnel, and you can see that, okay, I'm in week 1, this is fun. I'm in week 2, this is kind of getting a little bit too much. I don't really know how to handle this. That's happening, and this is happening. Now I'm getting into week 3. I can see that all I have to do is for 2 more weeks, and I'll have this great thing that I've done something. I've produced something. There's a paper or there's a video series that has been done by me, and I can point to it. And so it can tend to be the longest 30 days, but then once you're past it, the shortest 30 days that you work through. So like just a couple examples right now, we have a 4th-year student who's working with me on writing a book that I've been trying to write for a long time, but again, couldn't find the time. It's basically taking all the ideas that I have from our sales model that we created and putting it into a book. And so every week we're working on a different phase of that sales model. And she's taking everything kind of the same format. I'm talking, she's recording, she transposes it, puts it into a Google Doc, shared doc, and then she goes to work on writing that chapter. Next week we do, and so we're working on that project. Another project we're working on is a little video series that I'm going to be launching on LinkedIn. Nothing major, but it's something that is just a small video series about advice for marketing and sales. And so I'll shoot the video, and I send the video with the intro sequence and everything to, I think it's a 3rd-year student. She's doing the editing, and we meet on Thursday, give critiques. We talk about, are we on schedule, moving that project along. So it's been really fun for me to see, and we're really excited to launch it with Stetson, specifically just because I love Stetson. They're in my backyard. They're alma mater. There's lots of other nice things I could say about Stetson. But in the future, now that we have it formalized, it's up on our website, it's open kind of to the public. We're going to be pushing this to other schools in the Central Florida area and inviting multiple other students in to interview and apply for positions. Just because we've seen that it works really well. The students have loved it, and we are getting a pretty big benefit from it ourselves, being that primarily we're able to create and publish more content than we've been able to do, which is very helpful for us. And with that, in the chat, I think Liz just put the link. You can go there and see our internship page. And at the bottom, you can apply by just sending us a message, and it'll probably be me or our business manager that will respond to you to do an interview if you'd like. In the middle of the page is listed some of the positions that we're looking for. Again, it's stripping away all of the traditional padded stuff, even driving to an office, that's gone. Training, onboarding, all that stuff's gone. It's just getting down to what would be the best benefit for you where you are right now. Is it writing articles? Is it editing video? Is it creating graphics? What is? And then us looking at our projects and saying, we have a project that will fit. And we talk about what that looks like. We see if it's a good fit, and then we work together for 30 days. So with that, Liz, I'll send it back to you and tell me if there's something else you want me to cover.
Let's see. Yeah. So while I get my video up, I think that's great information. Like Lee was saying, right? Internships are really about you and your experience. So some of his internships might be the right place for you and your experience and what you want to get out of your career. Maybe some of our other majors in there, like maybe you're not looking to edit, but maybe you're looking to learn a new skill. I think it's all about what you want to get out of that and broadening your base of experience and skills like he was talking about. So I think that's really crucial, not only in the internship world, but also deciding what you want to do in the future. Is sometimes you have to try try it to get exposure to it. Or like you said, you have to try it and build up a portfolio or a repertoire or something to show future employers. So I think that's great advice. I think it's also important, especially in a time where we're experiencing different crises going on in our world, that hey, I need to check in with my supervisor about this, or I need a support team that can be with me, or I need the space to be able to process this. So again, I think you look for a team and a culture that fits what you need. So great advice. So one of the opportunities that I wanted to present to our folks that have been listening is drop your questions in the chat. What questions do you have for Lee based on some of the content he's shared so far? There's definitely more to cover, but I wanted to kind of check with everyone and see what questions you have. I would say, what is one of the things that, maybe Lee, you could touch on about how does someone be successful when they're applying for a micro internship, maybe with you, or maybe, again, hosts of other folks that have them out there. But how do you be successful? Is it the resume that really impresses you? Is it the interview skills? Like, what should they be working on to be a competitive applicant?
That's a great question. I think that's the question of the hour, actually. So for me in particular, it's be as specific as possible, meaning if you can discern, I want to be a better graphic designer, or I want to write better, I want to be a better communicator, whatever it is, if you could know what that is, that helps me to say, let me look at our list of stuff that we want to do, or even create a project for you specifically. Then you're going to get what you want. And then I'll get what I want as well. But I would say the same thing goes for any other traditional or other micro-internship program that's outside of Signal. I think the more specific you are about what you're going to get from the internship, the more success you're going to have. And I think that just takes some time. I mean, sometimes you might have to do a couple things to learn, because I think we can all have this sort of pressure to feel like you have to know. I have to know what I'm majoring in so I know what I'm going to do the rest of my life. These questions that you're trying to answer at this stage are difficult. So I would say first, try to not try in whatever way, you relieve yourself of that pressure to just think, what is it that I feel like I'm kind of naturally talented in? It's something that I feel sort of passionate about, or feel like I could press into and I would love doing. And then try some things, which is another reason why we wanted this to be a truncated time period, because I think a lot of students should try a lot of things. They need to try, if they want to be in marketing, well, there's a ton of things to do in marketing. So, Google marketing positions or marketing roles and companies, agencies, and see what is there out there and what is involved in those. Do some research and find, well, I know I probably would want to do this or this, but this I'm not sure about and this I'm not sure about. So the more you hone that in, the more specific you can be about what you want, what internship you want to go after and what you want to get from it, which is going to be really, really the biggest thing on the front end, whether you're with Signal or with another company. And I'd also say that I just wanted to mention that if you're not currently on LinkedIn, I would highly recommend, I just want to give this as people are thinking about questions they want to ask, which, by the way, would this count as an ELR? Yes, it does. So answer the first question. But LinkedIn is going to be an invaluable resource for you, both from building your network, building your personal brand, finding out who's out there that you can help and can help you. And that's only going to grow. I mean, platforms change all the time, but as it stands for the foreseeable 5 years, it's worth investing time to sit and optimize, or as I would say, optimize your LinkedIn profile. A good solid professional headshot, a good title of where you are exactly, about section that's very clear about where you're headed. If you don't, be very honest and very clear about not knowing, but having a general idea. Anything you've worked on, that is the new resume. So to Liz, your point about resume, I kind of feel like resumes are dead for the most part. You have people like Elon Musk, which is an extreme example, but he's saying that he doesn't really look at any of that anymore. He doesn't even look at if you have a degree, which that's up for debate, because there's another side of that argument that he's making. But I definitely think when it comes to things like resume, you should take the time to articulate who you are and what you're about on a sheet of paper, because I think just by going through that exercise, it helps you know more about who you are and what you're headed for. And take the time to be intentional about what it looks like, because that exercise alone is helpful in, like I said, understanding yourself, but then and what you want, but then having something to show. Like, your resume really is the first thing that people see that you've created before they can look and see what you actually have created or done. And there's a tool that you can use for free. It's canva.com, canva.com. Just sign up for free, and you can probably even have templates of resumes on there that are, professional designers have given to Canva to use, or they've created themselves. And you can use it to make it look nice. There's no reason to have a 1990 looking resume anymore. But with that said, I think you shouldn't stop with the resume. That should just be an exercise to help you grow in whatever way it helps. I think the real new resume is LinkedIn. Whenever I do a talk like this, or I have some kind of speaking engagement, I typically just say, go to my LinkedIn, everything you need is there. There's a headshot there. There's my bio of what I'm about. There's my company information. There's links to my email, my phone, everything is there, because I've taken the time to optimize it and make it available, because this is a business networking platform. And really I want to believe that it can be one place where we all have this conversation. So that's one thing. The other thing, and I could talk about LinkedIn for days, but I'll just say that if you're not on it, get on it. Make sure your profile looks good. If you don't know what should go on there, Google it. How do you optimize a LinkedIn profile? You'll have a million hits on how to do it. But start creating stuff. Start writing about your experience that you're having as a student working on an internship, or the interns that we're working with, I'm trying to get them to have this meta conversation that they're recording about their internship process, or that they're going through. So we're writing this book. I want her to talk about what it's like writing a book, because that's beneficial for her as well. And, it helps everyone. So LinkedIn is definitely a place that you need to spend some time. Post, regularly, once a day. Engage on posts, like, share, comment, build your network. Stetson alumni, I have not utilized this to the degree that I should, but if you are a student currently, or you're an alumni, that's a vast network of people that will listen to what you have to say immediately. Now, if what you have to say doesn't match with where they're at, then that conversation might fall apart, but you don't know until you reach out and ask. So, that's a huge benefit to being a Stetson student or alum.
Yeah, that's great advice, Lee. LinkedIn is awesome. If you need any help with your LinkedIn, definitely make sure, like he said, to check out some resources. You can connect with our office. We help students all the time with optimizing their LinkedIn. Heck, you can reach out to Lee and see what his looks like. His is really great. Got lots of information on there. Another thing that I think that he brought up that I just wanted to jump in real quickly, if that's okay, is using something to create a resume that, like he said, reflects what you're going for. If you're going for marketing, advertising, public relations, maybe journalism, graphic design, things like that, even computer science, you need a resume that stands out, maybe something that's a little more creative. Definitely make sure that you check on the flip side if you're in fields that are a little more traditional, that want the more traditional look that traditional resume brings. Make sure you check that out. Definitely reach out to alums, like he said, and get their opinion. If they're the hiring managers, if they're the ones at these companies, and I bet Lee likes, like he said, a little more creative resume, it would be great to know that, so that you're putting that best foot forward. Yeah. A comment that we got in the chat, Lee, is from Yasmin, and she was saying if there's two different projects that they're interested in, maybe on your site or another site, how do you choose? Do you choose? Is there a way to kind of pursue that in the best way?
Yes, before I answer that, I wanted
Yeah.
to, before I forget, I was working with a client of mine just probably 2 or 3 months ago, and he wanted to hire an executive assistant. And he asked me to help him with the process. So we started looking for someone to help him. And we interviewed a number of people, probably 3 or 4 people, until we interviewed this one lady who came in, and she ended up getting the position. But she had a resume that was what I was saying. She gave the resume, and it looked very creative. You know, there were icons. It wasn't overdone. You could tell that she took some time to put into it. And so we asked her. We said, "Did you make this resume just for this job interview?" And she said, "Well, of course. I have lots of resumes." And I thought to myself, "You're hired." I mean, just the ingenuity of saying, like, "Hey, you know, I really want this," is why she got the job. But we dug into it a little bit, and you know, she basically, what she did was she said, "Okay, I'm looking at this job that I'm going to apply for, and I see she's doing an analysis of problem solving, essentially, to see what need they have and what benefits she can bring or value she can bring." And so she takes her current resume and she rewords it so that, you know, it's not embellishing, it's not lying, everything's true, but it's marketing. It's geared towards that specific client of hers, the client being her new employer. And I thought that was just great. It's not really anything crazy, but it just shows, like, she took the time to do that, which set her way above all the rest, because my client, CEO, he needs somebody who thinks like that. He needs somebody who thinks on their toes, has creative ideas, and can support him in the work that he's doing. So I just give you that example to say, you know, I think resumes are dead, but in that scenario, she didn't think about it as a traditional resume. She looked at it almost like a dynamic piece of content. So let me look back at the question is, let's see if I can scroll here, is if there's 2 projects and you're interested in multiple. So the way we do it is we try to identify the thing that can provide you the most value first. And then we work together for 30 days on that project. And once that's up, then we both get to sit back and decide, how did that go? And do we both want to work together again for another 30 days? So you can do back-to-back projects kind of sequentially. We're just started this program not too long ago in terms of the structure. So I don't know if we would have a limit, but you know, an easy way to understand this too is almost like Skillshare. If you're familiar with Skillshare or Udemy, or there's a couple other sites out there where you can just dial up, you know, how to learn how to do Facebook ads, and you can pay $19.99 and get 5 hours worth of someone telling you how to do Facebook ads. It's kind of like that, but a much more simplified version with a personalized person that's mentoring you through it. That's the structure of our program. So, you know, we want to start a conversation, and hopefully it goes well. We'll say, oh, okay, you did that, you enjoyed it. Well, do you want to do it again, or do you want to do something that's slightly different? So hopefully that answers your question. And then recent grads qualify for the same positions. Yes, this is open to anyone that is looking to make a move. This is, I don't know, I mean, this could be someone further in their career, because it's similar to an executive online course that you take from a college like Stetson, that you pay money for, and then they teach you a broader skill, and then you put it on your resume and you try to get, you know, you take the next move in your career. Similar to that. So, you know, anybody would qualify, whether you're a student or alumni. And yes, but there was, oh, I wanted to mention too, I definitely did want to not mention this, that these internships are not paid, they're unpaid, but we have seen so far that the benefit the student or alumni has received has been far greater than any internship, this as feedback from our interns, than they've gotten any paid position that they've held. And what's great about it is, especially during quarantine, this kind of birthed out of quarantine, and then as we're going through summer, a lot of students will have part-time jobs and they have a bunch of time to fill. This is perfect time to, your bills are paid. You're not trying to make money. You're really just trying to learn something and grow personally. And that's where this program fits in. If you're in the middle of the school year and your schedule's full, and you can't fit something like this in because you'd have to give up something that helps pay the bills, then I understand that's a different situation. But I think in large part, the benefit is that it's only 30 days. So at the end of 30 days, you have something to show for it versus multiple months of getting paid and really not much to show for it. Looking to see if there's more questions. Any other questions?
All right, folks, as we wind it down here, I'm going to go ahead and drop the cultural credit survey into the chat box. So make sure you complete that, and I will get it over to the registrar's office so it reflects on your account. I just dropped it in there.
And while Olivia is doing that, I want to put one more plug in. We dropped, if you scroll back through the chat, we dropped information about folks' LinkedIn's. So Olivia, myself, Lee, Alex, some other folks that are here with us from Stetson. We also have the links to Signal Media, so Lee's micro-internship program that he's been talking about, which sounds amazing. And then we also have a link to the other micro-internships that Lee was mentioning through another provider that we partner with, that's on our Stetson career page. So again, check out both of those opportunities to see which one, like he said, fits best for you and your career goals. And then drop any last minute questions before we go in the chat. Definitely thank you, Lee. This has been awesome. Yeah.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh yeah, definitely. We're not closing you out.
Yeah,
I just
one
want
more thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, one more thing before we leave. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and trying to be more and more consistent with that myself, because the whole idea here is not necessarily to build a resume, but more to build your personal brand. And that's just where it is. That's where it's going. So please reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect with me, message me, hit me up with any questions you have. I'm open to answering. I think it's a little bit of a myth that people are so busy they can't respond to stuff like that. I just don't find that the case. And I also enjoy it. I enjoy the dialogue. I love new connections and, building my network, because every single one of you are valuable in your own right. And so please, let's connect on LinkedIn. I'll just